Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah is the Nur of the heavens and the earth and the source of all knowledge. We begin with a prayer to Allah to protect us from all evil and to grant us the guidance towards the straight path for monetary policy. This talk is an edited and updated version of an original talk given in Urdu earlier. In a paper with this name, The Battle for the Control of Money, I explained that there is a huge amount of confusion about what money is and how it is created. And this confusion is deliberately created by the few people who know the answers to these questions. Knowing what money is and how it can be created is a source of great power. And not knowing what money is leads us to borrow money and sometimes at interest. And this leads us to be slaves and in power of those who are able to give us money. We just give one example to illustrate how false theories about money shape the world in ways which favor the powerful. So when the global financial crisis occurred, there were many theories around, but one of them was a monetary theory which says that you have to keep the money flowing, and this involved $1 trillion plus bailout to the financial sector. All of the corrupt banks were given money to keep them running. In contrast with this, the debt deflation theory, as modified by Atif Mia and Amir Sufi, says that the source of the problem was the inability of households to pay their mortgage loans, and the bailout should have been given to the households. This would have been at 1/10 the cost and would have prevented the Great Recession that followed. But this policy option was not taken because it was not in the favor of, it was not beneficial to the financial sector, even though it was based on the right theory. So the wrong theories dominate because they favor the rich and wealthy and powerful. Today, while economic textbooks never discuss the matter, the system of global trade is amazingly biased. It involves the US printing dollars and exporting paper to the rest of the world, while the rest of the world struggles to earn this paper in return for real resources. The history of how this system came into being has been explained in detail in a couple of previous lectures which are linked here. The truth about money is that money is created by the state and acquires the status of money purely by law, which is fiat. This money comes into existence from nothing. It is not needed to, there is no gold or silver needed. Governments do not need to raise taxes in order to finance their spending because they actually print money. And the tax is a money which is returned to them. If they burn their tax money, they can reprint the same amount again, and there will be no difference economically. Deficit number, how much the state earns and how much it spends, and the difference between them is meaningless number. The states do not need to borrow money from the private sector, and they also do not need to borrow money from foreign governments. The optimal rate of interest in economy is always zero, and this is the same as the optimal rate of inflation, which is also zero. But all of these insights are not available from standard theories which say that all of these things I've said are wrong. So why is there so much confusion about money? Because money is a source of power. If it is treated as a public good, something of benefit to all, and if it is used for social welfare, it can create enormous benefits. Modern theories hide this source of money creation, which is actually private sector credit in modern economies, because this source of money creation gives enormous power to the financial sector. The modern theories of macroeconomics tie the hands of the government, prevent it from creating money as needed for needs of the public. The constraints that we face in running an economy are primarily mental. It's not physical forces that are aligned against us like armies. It is the theories which constrain us to think in narrow and incorrect ways and prevent us from thinking along the lines which are required for our freedom. How does this money which is created out of nothing acquire value? The value of money is not created by gold or silver. It is created by government regulation. Modern money is not a promise to pay. If you look at the note, it says the bearer of this note will be given this amount of money by the governor of the state bank. That means that the piece of paper will be redeemed for another piece of paper like that. So this promise is meaningless. Actually, the truth is that anyone can create money. The trick is to make it widely acceptable. And this trick is the trick to the creation of money, which the governments can do very easily. So how does the money acquire value? Well, basically, taxation is one of the standard methods. If everybody is forced to pay taxes, then they need money in order to pay their taxes, and this gives value to money. But there are other methods. The government can run large-scale public stores where goods are available for purchase in money issued by the government, and this will give money value. Money itself is not valuable, but it is an intermediate good which is used to produce value. So you can hire laborers and buy resources and then produce something. So if money is used for the production of value, then this money will not create inflation. But if you use money to just buy things and not to produce things, this is a source of inflation. So there are good and bad ways to create money and good and bad ways to use money. The key monetary policy question which faces governments is how we should create money. It can be created primarily by creation, but it can also be acquired by taxation or by borrowing according to conventional theory. As we have said earlier, borrowing and taxation are not sources for generation of revenue, but still borrowing and taxation by governments may be useful for other purposes, not for the generation of revenue. Then, how much money should we create and what should we do with this created money? Basically, the answers lie in what is called functional finance. Focus on what good the money can do. Do not focus on how to get money, how much money to make, because those are trivial issues. You can print as much money as you like, but you need to know what will happen to this money and what will the effects of this money be on the real economy. So focus on the real consequences of printing money. In looking at these consequences, we should have certain goals in mind, and these are the key goals. First is to get full employment. Every human being should have the opportunity to contribute to the economy. Everyone can make a productive contribution, and the first goal of economics in an Islamic state is to ensure that every single person who wants to can serve the society to the best of his abilities. Monetary policy should also guarantee zero interest rate and zero inflation so that the value of money remains stable across time. Money should flow into investments with maximum social productivity, and these are education, health, and social welfare. Money should not flow into investments with high private returns and no social return. An example of this is insurance, the fire sector, which is basically finance industry, real estate, lands, stocks, insurance. So these are the places where you have the highest private return and no social return. In the capitalist economies, the financial sector is the largest sector, and in fact, we need to make sure that the real sector is the important sector. If we want to do a project like feed the people, we have to make sure that food is available. If you want to educate the people, you have to make sure that teachers and schools are available. So basically, the goal of an economy is to make sure that everyone has enough for their daily needs, the basic needs, so that they can turn their attention to higher goals like spiritual pursuits and social pursuits. And so self-sufficiency is of extreme importance. This is exactly the opposite of standard recommendations of economic theory. When we want to finance projects, we have to not worry about the money needed because that can be created. We have to look at the real resources. If I want to educate children, I have to look at how many teachers are available in how many schools, not at how much money is available. Once the teachers and the schools are available, then the money can be created at will for the purpose of utilizing these resources. So how should we invest in good projects? Modern economics says that the government should do all things, and this is wrong. The government is generally not capable of carrying out large projects by themselves. The key to growth is community-driven development. The government should mobilize communities. Communities are organized in Islamic societies along the masjid, neighborhood, and then the Jum'ah, which collects many neighborhoods, and similarly higher and higher organizational circles. The society should be organized along these lines, with each neighborhood having its shura, and then these shura sends members to higher levels, and those to higher levels, and eventually to the government, so that every voice is potentially available to the highest leadership of the government. Every member of the society can communicate with his shura. The shura can go to higher level shuras and eventually make it to the largest levels if the voice is of some importance. We should ensure the participation of the weakest and the poorest parties in the shura, and everything should work on the principle of self-help. The communities, just like self-sufficiency is important at the national level, so all communities should learn to be self-sufficient within their neighborhoods to the extent possible. The government should not provide aid to make people development, but it should provide aid to ensure that people have the strength and capability to stand up. One of the critical elements of monetary policy is the job guarantee program, which ensures that every single human being in the nation is able to contribute to the society to the extent that he or she is capable of, and money required for this purpose should be provided. The Islamic work ethic is something we need to instill into our citizens by educational process, that when you receive money as a compensation for service, you should make sure that the service is done to the best extent possible, because that is what makes your earning halal. Propagating this work ethic is an essential part of the job guarantee program, but the job guarantee should not be provided by the government. That is, the job should not be provided by the government. The government should enable this to happen by providing support to communities to ensure that all members of the community get productive jobs. There's a lot of local information at the community level. The community knows which members have which talents and capabilities, and it can also motivate people to work by using methodology of social approval or social disapproval. We should ensure that every single person who is born receives enough financial and social support to become a productive individual. That means that he should receive food, healthcare, housing, clothing, and education, both Taleem and Tarbiya, both the technical education and the love and caring that mothering provides, and the conduct, the Tarbiya, the education in principles of Islamic conduct. So this kind of, so making money available to ensure that every child receives support is part of our collective responsibility. This should be understood as that all children born are my children. Every single person should feel that this society is one society. We are all part of the same community. Developing self-sufficiency is extremely important, both at the individual, family, neighborhood, community, and national level. A central characteristic of capitalism is massive overproduction. This is necessarily accompanied by massive overconsumption. So basically, capitalism is based on israf and tabzir, and this requires shaping the minds of everyone to enjoy spending in excess and to make wealth and consumption the goal of life. and the West has developed expertise in this shaping of minds and making people desire to hugely overconsume and to go after wealth without thinking about the consequences of this. And the idea of israf and tabzir is, of course, opposite of what Islam teaches. So capitalism is not compatible with Islam. Because of capitalist expertise at propaganda, it is necessary to shield the minds of the public from the kind of poison that is being produced by Hollywood. And both Russia and China developed behind the Iron Curtain and the Bamboo Curtain, and making sure that their public were not exposed to Western propaganda. Today, the social media are very powerful, and we need to shield our children from this. But since it is impossible to shield them completely, it is necessary to expose them to this poison and to explain why it is poisonous. We need to do counter propaganda, and one of the ways has been taken by Turkey. They are producing Islamic movies with Islamic values and morals. Other ways are through education, but this new style of education needs to be created. Another way is that simple lifestyle led by the leadership encourage people to emulate simplicity, and that is one of the keys. So at the center of our efforts is an Islamic education, which is done by the family, the mother, the family, the neighborhood, the schools, and the mashayikh, who will provide the Tarbiya that is needed. In particular, developing an appropriate system of education is an item of top priority. But the central teaching of this is that the Ummah is like one body. Everyone should feel the pain of other. We should teach our children that how can I enjoy luxuries if someone else is hungry? This is the counter to the capitalist teaching, which teaches that you should just worry about your own self and enjoy luxuries and not worry about others. We should teach our children to take pleasure in providing service to the creation of God for the sake of the love of Allah. We should focus on development of character using our huge amount of material available for this purpose in our heritage, but updating it to modern needs. And we can also work on acquisition of specialized knowledge which has been developed more recently. And we can now shield our students from having to go abroad to study, which necessarily imposes alien cultural values upon them. They get trained in those as well as technical skills. But now these technical skills are widely available over the internet, so we can avoid cultural imperialism. Education is a critical sector which will provide us with self-sufficiency in the intellectual realm. We should focus on a syllabus which creates an identity, which emphasizes Islamic heritage, teaches us the value of man, teaches us how to become human beings, and one human life is worth more than the entire mankind. Instead of teaching people the value of money and the value of production and the desire for consumption, to create such an education, we need to work on this and update resources from our heritage and avoid the social media onslaught from the West. Also, we must focus on the crucial skills. There are about 90% of the Western education teaches useless knowledge, which the Prophet ﷺ sought protection from. We should focus on useful knowledge, which is only about 10% of what is being taught in the West, by the process of filtering, separating the good from the bad. This is a difficult one, and this is the central task which is needed for the Ummah today. Wrong theories are taught in economics departments which govern the approach to foreign trade in a way that is designed to make us dependent on foreigners. The idea that we should do exports to earn money, foreign exchange, is ridiculous, because exports give real resources to others in exchange for paper. This cannot be good policy. We have to look through this. What will we do with this paper and go to the end? Use barter instead of selling goods for paper. We should sell goods in order to get the goods that we need. We should focus on what we need to get and make focused trade. Because of this, we should identify what are the critical imports. These critical imports should be for our basic needs until we achieve self-sufficiency, and then for the needs of defense and security, software, artificial intelligence, which are currently being used in order to defend ourselves from foreign wars, of whether of culture, ideas, or physical ones. Some portion of what we need to learn, skills and knowledge, only exists outside, and so this knowledge has to be brought inside. And one of the most effective means of doing this is by foreign direct or indirect investment. But this must be done very carefully, because foreigners are looking to acquire control, and we have friendly countries, and as long as we have foreign investment on a musharaka basis, and with the idea of technology transfer, this will be beneficial for us. It has to be negotiated carefully to ensure that foreign investment which comes in will create knowledge and skills within the local economy, and the return to the investor should be in the form of production and share of the output that results from the increase in technology and knowledge and production in the domestic economy. So the key is to have simple lifestyles which minimize the need for foreign imports, except in the necessary sector and in the knowledge sector. And for this, we need to make sure that we don't envy the luxurious and meaningless lifestyles which are glorified by Hollywood. And we ask Allah for the bounty that Allah Ta'ala provides, which is the contentment of the heart, not the luxuries of this world. So we conclude by noting that money is actually a way of keeping accounts, keeping track of who has done what to whom. Within a family, we don't keep track. People do things for other because they want to do them. And all of the nation is just like an extended family. So once we have this unity of hearts, which is the most precious thing, then we will not need money at all. But until that ideal is achieved, we have approximations to this. In Islamic societies, there were very good approximations. People would, yes, trade with each other, buy and sell, but they would also help each other out when they saw the need. This is very different from the competitive jungle of economics, where we are taught to use cutthroat competition. In fact, the Islamic societies works on the principles of cooperation and generosity and social responsibility, which are diametrically opposed to the capitalist principles of competition and greed and individualism and hedonism. Ideals that I have spelled out seem to be very high, and people say that how can we achieve such results? So we must remember that Islam is always about the journey, not the destination. It's about the struggle to create an ideal society. We know that our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the model for us in excellence in conduct, even though we can never be like him, we can never be even 1,000th like him, but still he serves as our goal and role model. Similarly, the ideas that I have sketched, the ideal society, is something that was achieved in the time of Khulafai Rashidin, and we will never have Khilafat Rashida again. But that doesn't mean that we should give up trying to achieve this. And in fact, Islam is all about making the effort to achieve the good things and having the high goals, even if you can never achieve them. The niyyah of the moment, the intention of the moment, is 10 times ahead of his action. So we end with a prayer to Allah to accept our efforts and to guide us towards the right path and to enlighten our lives with the nur of his hidayah.